Is non-duality cultish? Dunk, dunk, dunk! So, in my opinion, I would say yes. But it's like any belief system has the potentiality to become cultish. So it's not so simple, it's not so easy. Like the nuances of everything are always infinitely complex. Yeah. I used to be more into politics, and then somebody that I was close with kept repeating, how complex politics was and society was and economy was. And as I began to really see that, my mouth became closed and more closed about the subject, because it's so complex. So any view we have is so relative and such a tiny portion of it. Yeah. Imagine if ants had politics in their colonies. How do you get billions of people, 8 billion people, to work together and to compete against each other so we keep improving and evolving? And to care about people that they can't know or see. We're good at caring about people we know and see, but it's harder to care about this humanity that's among us and has lots of differences. I mean, it's so complex. And then we think that we have a perspective on it. I think I'm allowed to say these words now and won't go for review. Have an idea about whether vaccines and the way the government does it and the way the government doesn't do it is good or bad. Yeah, we can have relative views, but it's in such a bigger picture that we can't possibly see. The workings of this society is beyond all of us. Nobody can really understand economy. Yeah. So anyway, back to, is non-duality cultish? I think it's really complex and not so easy to decipher. I would say yes, though, which is quite a big statement, because I'm a teacher of non-duality. So I'm saying yes, non-duality is cultish. I mean, who would say that? And I'm not saying that as those teachers that teach a progressive way is cultish, and these ones that one is that. All of it can and has the possibility to be cultish. Neo-Advaita to the most dogmatic, ritualistic path there is. All of it has the possibility. So to me, what does it mean by cult? I think cults can even happen now in a technological age where you don't even meet people. So I don't think cults now are just places that live in the middle of the countryside trying to escape society. And I think it also happens on the internet. It's happening in this new cyber world where people are forming these cultish groups. And it doesn't just happen in non-duality, it happens in politics, in psychology, in Christianity, Muslim, Hinduism. All of these are susceptible to it. And it's not just this group of people that live together out there somewhere. So to me, what is a cult? I think there's a very defined definition of what a cult is, and maybe I pull that up just to have a reference point. Meaning of cult, and I'm sure people will argue over what the actual meaning of a cult is, but we'll just read the dictionary one. A system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. A person or thing that is popular or fashionable among a particular group of or section in society. What is the original meaning? The term cult first appeared in English in 1617, derived from the French culti, meaning worship, which in turn originated from Latin and cults, meaning care, cultivation, worship. The meaning, devotion to a person or thing. Interesting, eh? So in that very original idea of the word, we could see that, yeah, non-duality can become that, because it's this idea, this belief system which you believe is right. And how prepared are you to let go of that? It's so interesting because, you know, non-duality makes you different from other people. It makes you feel safe when you're deep in suffering. It bonds you to other people when you maybe feel disfragmented from society. Disfragmented from society. It helps with psychology. It maybe can help you feel superior to others, feel safe, feel part of something, feel like you know how to deal with your life, like you know how to deal with work or complex situations or complex emotions, or how to deal with other people. Maybe it makes you feel less stressed and more removed from life, like this bigger picture. And so how prepared are you to let go of those ideas? Like, even if we say that non-duality is just an idea, are you really prepared to let it go? You can see that the mind's like, I've let it go, but I can still something to non-duality. Yeah, religious practice, cult religious practice, that is not cult meaning. Cambridge Diction. Accept. A religious group often living together whose beliefs are considered extreme or strange by many people. Their son ran away from home and joined a religious cult. Yeah. So, but now I think it can happen through the internet. It's you can have it while not being in the group, you know. It's a mentality, it's a way of being. It's an indoctrination of indoctrinization of ideas. And there are so many ideas, like every idea that we present in non-duality could have potential good or bad effects in the realm of life. So say if we take this idea of consciousness speaks through us. So Ramesh Balsekar wrote a book called Consciousness Speaks. If you looked more to the Course in Miracles, it would be like hearing God's voice, or like spirit moving you, spirit speaking through you. So if we take that idea, like on its positive side, it can help you see the interconnectedness of everything. That everything is interconnected, and that the you that you feel is responsible for your life is maybe not in the driving seat. And a lot of suffering comes from blame, guilt, shame, expectation, from this claiming of doership. And then energetically, if that's realized, if there's a shift which is beyond ideas, then it's a freedom from the person, like the person isn't the center of this life. The center of this life is something magical and mysterious which we can't define. It's this energetic expansion. So that's it on its positive side. And the last one is really not a concept, that's an energetic expression, but we talk about it in concepts. But then we look at it on the negative side, is it can validate psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists, like extreme narcissists. So it can validate bad behavior. People can use it in relationships to not connect, to act out personality issues and attachment issues. You know, so you could become really passive in a relationship because you feel like everything is consciousness, or you have this idea that everything is consciousness, so you teach yourself to be passive in a relationship, and that's not necessarily right. You could be like trapping yourself or leading yourself into immense suffering by this idea that consciousness speaks through me. So if consciousness speaks through me and the other, there's nobody to blame. So then if the other person is awful, it's myself. You can get into all types of ideas. Or it's myself as everything, or that's exactly what I need to learn. You could also become megalomaniac, like do really terrible things because you believe that that's consciousness working through you. There could also be like lack of responsibility to family and friends. And you might think it's about consciousness or waking up, but it might just be that because you've taken your eye off the ball, like the person, and you've got this new concept, you're letting through like dysfunctional behavior. Yeah. So if we get to another idea that everything has a purpose, I mean, this one's really like, or everything is leading to waking you up, which is something that I say. Like, this could be really beautiful because there's again a surrender and a stopping fighting the experience and just seeing the magic and the beauty of this life. Like, this life is really magical and beautiful and we don't really know how it's working. And if there's like a really beautiful surrender, you can see that life is your teacher. But on the negative side, if somebody's been abused, someone's been in a terrible situation like a plane crash or a car crash or been raped or victimized, that's a disastrous concept, because in order to heal, now I really understand healing or the nature of healing, the mind has to say that was wrong to happen, or that was bad to happen, like if they were raped, like that person was wrong. And there has to be this appropriate placing of blame, and then release of that blame, and a release of the emotions associated with it, and a release of self-blame, of feeling guilty, feeling like you did something wrong. Like, it's very complex. So even though that's a really beautiful, like everything is waking you up, that has a beautiful side to it, it also can have a potentially negative side. The idea of enlightenment. So a cult needs to have this idea of enlightenment or the idea of something super special happening in order to form through the internet or in person. You need to generally have a leader, or even if the leader's dead, like this idea that that person is in some way superhuman and going to do something great for society. So even if they're not superhuman, it's like you are going to help society to become more enlightened, or you are going to help spread the word. And so that idea, like, we need to speak about it in non-duality, because you need to talk about waking up, and that there is an actual difference from being contracted to expanded. But this idea of an enlightened person can have disastrous effects. Like, what a great way to create a following is the idea that there is somebody there that is enlightened, and I'm going to get something from that. I'm going to become enlightened, and then we're going to spread it to the rest of society. Yeah. And this can have this sense of feeling really special, like you belong to something that's really special, that you might get this if you practice this, that will be your savior and that will be your freedom. But we need these words in order to speak about waking up, otherwise how do we speak about it? It's very complex, like I said. Like one of the reasons, I had a lot of people saying, you know, why don't you join Patreon and do like create a community through Patreon? And most of the reason is, like I have thought about it on and off, but most of the reason is that I can't be bothered. It's more work. And the other reason is because I'm reluctant to create a community so around me in any way. I would love to live in a community of people, but not as me as a central figure or a teacher, because I'm not sure if that's right. It might happen or it might not, but like I'm okay with working one-on-one with people, and I'm okay doing these live streams, but creating a community where you really get to know a group of people and you're their leader, like I would rather do courses that are a lot more impersonal, because you begin to get into these mentalities, this group mentality, and it's so tempting for us because that's the way we've survived and evolved as humans, of having these kings, these male figures that tend to always have to be low on empathy because they've got all these workers around them, and then they're taking all the taxes and maintaining the money, but they lead people and everyone puts their trust and faith in them and like worships them in a way. But we're kind of moving away from that as a society. Now we're realizing that this one central figure, you know, if they go a little bit, then there's so much danger. That's why in democracy, you know, we have this turnover of leaders and all these checks in place to stop that happening, because yeah, someone with all that power can be very problematic. You know, you don't know, even if they've had massive awakenings, how power hungry they are or what traumas they've got acting out through their body. So it's better that there's more of a group-led focus. Group-led focus. Yeah. What else have we got? See, I kind of think, like if I'm in a group, like I love talking, I love theorizing about stuff, like I love that. So I love the fact that I can do these talks very impersonally and put them up on the internet. Maybe it feels very personal to you because, you know, you're getting to know me, but to me, I'm just expressing this energy that wants to talk. But if I'm in a group, if I got selected as a leader, I would really be like, oh, bollocks. Because to me, it's just more work and you've got to deal with other people's projections. Like it's just way more complex to be the leader. That I would much prefer being on the side and being creative. So what does it say, somebody that wants to be the leader? What does that say about them? I don't know. I don't have the answers to this because I don't have that urge or that desire. I love the yaga. Like I like it all the time. Like I have friends, and you know, I like to have people around me where I can like really go for it and be challenged with my ideas and what I think and feel, and I love that I have the freedom and they don't get reactive. You know, they're really open to just hearing my new ideas or what I like or don't like about these things or political ideas, and they just reflect back what their perspective is on that. I love that, like friendly debate. But the idea of being a leader, I'm like, who wants that job? It sucks. Unless, to me, the person wants the power over people, then it doesn't suck so much. Because if the person wants the power over the people, then they get quite a lot of rewards. But if there's a very beautiful quote from Dune, the book Dune. I think I've read it to you all before, but I'm going to read it again. Quotes. Let's hope that I put it in the right category. I don't think I did. Let's see if it's at the top. Quote, Dune. Okay, this is a hard quote with lots of big words in it, and for a dyslexic brain and there's distance and I haven't got my glasses on, just have to be patient. Greatness is a transitory experience. It is never consistent. It depends in part upon the myth-making imagined of humankind. Sorry, I'll read that sentence again. The whole thing. Greatness is a transitory experience. It is never consistent. It depends in part upon the myth-making imagination of humankind. The person who experiences greatness must have a feeling for the myth he is in. He must reflect what is projected upon him, and he must have a strong sense of the sardonic. This is what uncouples him from the belief in his own pretentiousness. The sardonic is all that permits him to move within himself. Without this quality, even occasional greatness will destroy a man. Yeah, it was hard enough for me to write woman. I couldn't put man, woman. Like, it's in the book, but the guy wrote in the 60s, so he most probably had this sense of using the masculine. But for those that maybe aren't native English speakers, I'll just say sardonic means like a sense of disdain or bitterness or like looking down on something. So he must have a strong sense of the sardonic towards his greatness. So if you become the leader, it's like not a sense of wanting the power. I think that's a beautiful quote. I think that's such a wise quote. And it's in Dune. If you haven't read Dune, read Dune. It's very good. Or listen to Dune. Yeah. So, to me, you know, with the speaking of non-duality, one thing I love about it is having the internet to keep this impersonality. So in my day-to-day life, I am not leading people except Khaleesi, who even there we're like, sometimes she gets a bit beyond herself, especially when we're out walking. And I think that's a great thing, but I think that cults are even forming in through the internet, where we've got this leader that's set up that is the all-knower. Jesus Christ, if I haven't communicated to you that I'm not the all-knower, I have done a very bad job. I did dive so deep into non-duality and have this miraculous experience, and it stays with me, and I'm totally in love with the subject. But on the human level, I am totally flawed. And I'm totally perfect as well, because even our flawedness is perfect. But I have flaws. I don't know if I make a very good leader. I'm more interested in being creative and thinking creatively. And I'm sure there's so many things which have been unhelpful to people in what I've shared. I'm sure there's lots of things that have been helpful, but ideas can be like that. There's not like these one ideas of non-duality that are right. It's that everybody is individual, and, you know, saying to somebody, like everything is a teacher, you know, everything is teaching you this, like that could be damaging to some people. That could, you know, you could have somebody that's been really badly, severely abused, and so they think that it's a watching, you know, being abused, and they don't really deal with the abuse. And what they've got to do is they've got to go through a process of analyzing the abuse, seeing it for what it is, putting the blame in the correct place, which is the other form, and externalizing it, not internalizing it, and releasing that trauma. You know, also seeing that it's like that person isn't evil, or that thing that abused isn't evil. It's a set of circumstances that happen. There's a whole process to releasing it. But if somebody uses that to try and heal from abuse, I don't think that's a good concept for them. It doesn't bode well, though, for non-duality to not have really strong concepts. It doesn't bode well for making this cultish group or following around you if you're constantly imploding your own concepts and informing people that you're not perfect. Because when you get into this subject and you haven't really conceptualized your personality, dealt with trauma, and done therapy and work on yourself and released energies, then what you're looking for is this to be a new lifeline for you. And you know, when you're in the middle of the sea, you know, and you're almost drowning, you just want a one of those life little dinghies and a strong rope attached to the boat to pull you in. So it's like what people want is they want this strong subject to come and save them, that's very much like this, and then you will be free. They don't want to understand that it's complex, that healing is complex, that being alive is complex, that humanity is complex, because that's too overwhelming. It's like, I'm going to pull you in from the sea, but let me just tell you, the rope is very complex and it has very many variants to it. And, you know, it's not just like straight here into the boat. Person just wants to feel less stressed or wants to feel better about themselves, but then is scared of healing. Yeah. So then the greatest thing about non-duality is pointing back to what you are, and then knocking out of the ballpark all of these like groups and ideas and fetishes, and this is right and this is wrong, and yes, here I come, I'm gonna be this and I'm gonna save the world. So the knocking all of that out, the best thing that can be done is just a complete direct pointing back to what you are. But guess what? That can even become cultish, because maybe cultism is like a state of mind, but not your state of mind. Like it's like you get into these cultish dynamics when you feel vulnerable. When you hold on to them when you feel vulnerable. So maybe that even plays into cultism. You know, so if I were to tell you who you are, that who you are is this looking which is everywhere, that can too play into cultism and become your new flag that crutches you up, when really you feel really betrayed by your parents, your partner, by life, and you're holding on like, I am everything. So then the only thing that I really have at all is just the very recognition of what you are, which is wordless. And in some way I feel like when I'm speaking, I am communicating that wordlessness. It has to be, because in my experience, whatever my means, that's just infinitely complex. In my experience, I am that. I am everything. I know that might seem really abstract, like how can you say that's your experience, because there is no you, but the experience here just feels like it comes from everywhere and it is everything. But it's also recognized to be going through this human that is has frailties, has beautiful things that has frailties. So the speaking comes out diluted in the human frailties of whoever speaks it and the human beauties of whoever speaks it. But I know there is a knowing of this deep connection, and whenever it's seen or heard, it vibrates. It's like, yeah, here I am, 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 here I am. I've been in love with this subject since I can remember, even in childhood when I had no name for it. I would have these little mini awakenings. All of us did, you know, when we're really touched by something, or we just forget ourselves, or we're riding our bike, or we're looking at the blossom floating in the air, or the clouds, or hearing people laugh, or we're being chased in the playground, or we're listening to music, or we're going to a concert. We have these tiny moments of the timeless, of our essence, of that stillness of who we are. And it's invigorating. It's what we live for. It's what we are. And that part cannot be cultish, no matter what. It's not a belief, it's like a knowing. It's like my whole life I was knowing this. When I had this awakening, this big awakening where my head got blown off 11 years ago, I was like, this has been here all my life. It's been like, hello, 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 hello. And what's happened to me was I kept looking in the contraction. I kept looking in that condensed person. But then anything I say now may or may not be helpful to you, dependent on where you are in your spiritual search. You could be taking all these concepts in such a negative way, or you could be taking them positively. That is the nature, that is the failings of speaking about this. I am in no way control of that. Only thing that can be done from here, where my actions could be good or bad, is to express that love. To express the love, baby. It's the biggest revolution there is. To express love. Like, I didn't know what love was prior to this awakening. I had moments of it, but I didn't really know what it was to love. That love, like really loving someone, or anything, is unconditioned. You can't really love someone conditionally. I can say, like me and Khaleesi have a conditioned relationship, and I can enjoy that on the human level, and I can say I love her in that human way, but that's not really love. Her giving me pleasure because she, you know, does her little cutesy tootsy dance, that's nothing. Like, true love is like looking at her and knowing we are the same. That we are one. That everything about her is a reflection of myself, and everything of me is a reflection of her. And that at the moment we're fragmenting into these parts to have this experience of this evolution of things, this miraculous evolution of things that is so mind-blowing. This is so mind-blowing, what this thing is called life. And it's so uncapturable. Sorry about my speaking sometimes. It's so ironic, isn't it? That I love to speak, I love to write, I love to be creative, and I have this dyslexia which gives me problems remembering how to pronounce words, spell words. But it also makes me better at speaking, because one part of dyslexia is this real open-mindedness, because you can go really beyond words because you're not attached to words. It's beautiful. I never would give that up, even though a lot of people moan that I speak about it too much. It's so miraculous, this thing. And we can't understand it. And I'm not here as some non-duality teacher that's going to save you. I'm not doing it to do that. I love the idea of helping people. I love the idea of people having more peace and freedom in their life. I love that. But actually the reason that I speak is because this need, this love, this desire to express, to use the creativity that humanity is. Like, I am a human in this human form. I'm also not that, I'm also everything, but in this human form, it loves being creative. And this expression of speaking is this being creative. And I'm not here as a human leader of a group or to teach non-duality or to get followers, although if nobody listened, I don't know, maybe I would still do it. But obviously the idea to express is for somebody to listen and come back and express their point of view. And yeah, it's a bit weird because this technology has just been invented, so we're just kind of like evolving with it. Yeah. Life is miraculous. And it's so weird that I'm looking out at these laurels out of the window. The window curtains are all shut, and then we've got one blind that's broken, so I see outside. And the laurel is dancing in the wind, and the tree behind that, the leaves also are dancing. And all of that doesn't make sense. All of that is so unknown. It's so majestic in its appearance because we don't really know why it's happening. We have these scientific explanations that seem to make sense, but in the moment of them, there is this immense greenness and light dancing through this greenness, and it's absolutely wondrous. It's not separate from me. It is me. And I do these questions and answers because that's kind of what happened. But you know what? I don't know in the end. So we're going to go to questions and answers in the end, after I finish speaking. But I don't know. I don't know if what I'm saying is helpful to you or not. I can't see the complexities of this form that is asking me questions. I can reflect back the knowledge that's come about here in this human form that also has a sense of this oneness, but I don't know. It might be helpful, it might not, and it might be neutral. More than likely it'll be neutral. What's for dinner then? Oh yeah, beans on toast. I have to just tell you a joke for all the non-English people here, and maybe Americans don't get this as well, but The Spectator, which is an English newspaper, it came up on recommendations about this article. They do this on Firefox now. This article about English breakfast and the importance of whether baked beans should be in English breakfast or not. And I just had to like cry with laughter because the English people take their English breakfast so seriously. But if you understood how other people saw our English breakfast, like this article would be deemed irrelevant. Whether or not to have baked beans or not on an English breakfast is not the problem. If you think there is a problem with the English breakfast, it might be the English breakfast itself. Who in the whole world has a breakfast like the English breakfast? And I know you might be sitting there, you English people, like, ooh, I can tell you the rest of the world comes to England and is like, ooh, I could have an English breakfast, all excited about it. They get given that and they're like, the English people eat this for breakfast. Who has beans covered in a sugary tomato sauce, fried soggy mushrooms, sausages, fried toast, black pudding, which is blood fried, and some sort of potato thing, whether it's like a square hash brown or something. What country in the world has that for breakfast? Except England. And is it actually just an English thing, or is it a British thing actually? I'm not sure about that. The amount of people, like, when they find out I'm from England, because I travel a lot, like, this is often the conversation that they will then next bring up. Have you ever had an English breakfast? I'm like, yes, I have. Except I normally have the veggie English breakfast. And do they always come with baked beans? They always come with those. The mushrooms meant to be a bit soggy like that? Yes. And what's the black stuff? Blood. Yes, so Spectator, although I'm sure the people that wrote this article are never going to see it, the problem is not whether or not you have baked beans, it's the whole thing. And that is so miraculous, that people on Earth evolved to then love something that the rest of humanity hates. Yeah, that too also is wondrous.